So yesterday, Capcom released the official live action trailer for Resident Evil Requiem, and honestly, it may very well be the best and most loyal Resident Evil live action adaptation that we've ever seen. Seriously, I'm not a fan of the director of this short film, Rich Lee, who most recently directed that god-awful War of the Worlds remake. But with that being said, this short film perfectly captures the emotion and essence of the RE franchise better than any of the Anderson films, and obviously better than Welcome to Raccoon City. I'm hoping that this right here is a tease of what we can possibly get with Zack Ryder's live action film later this year. Still, not gonna lie, while Rich Lee may have fucked up the War of the Worlds remake, I'm totally fine with Capcom and Sony giving him a chance at making a Resident Evil movie if he keeps it the same tone as what we saw in this trailer, because this was pretty badass. But appreciation for this short film live action trailer aside, there's actually some pretty cool and interesting Easter eggs in this trailer that could honestly tease some really cool things in Resident Evil Requiem. So today on Nerd Space Games, I'm breaking down some of the hidden nuggets in this masterpiece of a trailer as I give you guys everything you might have missed in Resident Evil Requiem's live action trailer. Going back to the family that the trailer focuses on, our first Easter egg is this plushie right here. I'm sure it doesn't take a genius to realize that this is a Mr. Raccoon plushie, the Raccoon City mascot that we pretty much see all over Raccoon City and various locations throughout the franchise. So I know this is a stretch and it might seem like I'm making a really weird comparison here, but for whatever reason, I just got major Lottie vibes with how attached this little girl was to her Mr. Raccoon plushie. For those that don't know, Lottie was a teddy bear in Resident Evil Revelations 2 that belonged to Natalia Corda, and this teddy bear was one of the only things that Natalia cared for after losing her parents to the Terra Grigia incident years prior to this game. Obviously, little girls being attached to their stuffed animals isn't anything unique, but for whatever reason, I just got Natalia and Lottie vibes from these two. Also, at the start of the outbreak, before they make their way into the streets of Raccoon City, we can see a red herb Easter egg on the living room table here. Moving on, we get a shot of the mother and daughter entering the street somewhere near the RPD station. We know they go to the RPD station looking for safety from the zombies because of a few Easter eggs. First off, there's a lot of RPD officers wearing uniforms similar to the one that Leon specifically wears. We also see Kendo's gun shop in a quick blink and you'll miss it scene. Obviously, if you know anything about the location of Kendo's gun shop in the remake, it's quite literally right next door to the RPD station's parking garage. Finally, there's a couple of scenes that look like locations in the RPD station or around the RPD station, but I'm not 100% sure here due to how blurry these sequences are, and when we slow them down, it's still kind of dark. But this location here reminds me of the parking garage, and this location here actually reminds me of the sewers because we see this just plug here from Resident Evil 2 Remake, which we can assume means they are in the sewers, obviously. Now, because of how close this location is to the entrance of Nest, Umbrella's underground lab, I'm honestly more interested in this mother character than I was when I first saw this trailer. It appears that she's heading to Umbrella's lab if she somehow found herself just outside of the tram that brings her to the lab, and if that's the case, does this mean that she works for Umbrella, or at the very least is aware Umbrella's lab somehow? Maybe the girl's father and her husband work there? I don't know. I just thought this was something interesting to point out. Moving back to the streets of Kendo's gun shop, there's so much fun things to point out here, believe it or not. First, after seeing the RPD officers fight off some zombies, we get a quick glimpse of the UBCS, Umbrella's Biohazard Countermeasure Service. This is the same organization that Carlos, a protagonist of Resident Evil 3, works for. While we are on the topic of these guys, I do see some people talking about the man in the front and saying that this could be Nikolai or Mikhail. Now, personally, I think it's Mikhail, and I actually think this is most of his team that we see in RE3 Remake. You can even see his signature beret on his head, and behind him you see Murphy's ski cap. The only guy I don't recognize is the guy all the way to the right, as he doesn't really look like Tyrell, Carlos, or Nikolai. On the note of Nikolai, I remember Des Gollum mentioning that this live action trailer features multiple spoilers in regards to Resident Evil Requiem if you dig deep enough. From everything I'm seeing, I can't pinpoint any spoilers, except maybe one thing that we'll talk about later, but maybe it's about what Capcom teases in this trailer that could hint towards specific plot points in Requiem returning. For example, maybe Capcom is teasing the UBCS here as a way to tease that Nikolai is still alive and will appear in Resident Evil Requiem. I did a theory video a while back about how Nikolai could have survived despite it being unlikely, and how there was a whole mystery regarding him that was left unresolved in the remake, but again, saying this is him or a tease towards him is kind of a stretch. Let me know what you guys think though. Now, something that's definitely not unmistakable in this trailer is this shadow right here. Yeah, I'm sure any fan of Resident Evil 3 can pinpoint exactly who this shadow belongs to: Nemesis. Honestly, Capcom teasing Nemesis specifically in this live action trailer was an interesting choice, considering the fact that Nemesis Nemesis, at least at this point, is targeting STAR's members. So it's interesting that they throw Nemesis in here, and on that topic, it looks like the UBCS are actually heading towards him to fight off against him. Also, if you didn't already think this was Nemesis by his shadow, well, if you listen closely, you can even hear him say his iconic STARS line in the trailer. Nice touch, Capcom. As for if Capcom is teasing something with him, maybe? Go back to previous breakdown videos of mine, I brought up how I don't think Nemesis and Burt can survive Raccoon City, or that they would return to Requiem somehow. However, I did say if any creature could survive the bombing of Raccoon City, it would be Nemesis thanks to how fast he can regenerate. Sure, Joe Valentine did blow the creature into a million pieces, leaving him in chunks and a giant puddle of blood, but I would have put it past Nemesis putting himself back together and resurrecting himself after Jill escaped the city. And thanks to something that occurs later in this trailer, and the fact that Nemesis was underground, yeah, maybe, just maybe, Nemesis survived that blast. Again, probably a stretch, but it was a weird choice for Capcom to tease him in this trailer of all the different creatures they could have teased. Moving on, we also got a teaser of a Licker, which as of today is the creature that I believe is most likely to return to Requiem when we revisit Raccoon City. I mean, Lickers are arguably one of the most terrifying creatures in the Resident Evil franchise, and when you give them some sort of apocalyptic mutation that they develop over the decades of being buried in the ruins of Raccoon City, to me that just seems like a perfect recipe for a fantastic callback to a classic monster that we all loved in Resident Evil 2. After the tragic scene of the mother and her daughter getting attacked by a Licker in the sewers, and the fast forward sequence to Raccoon City after it was destroyed, we get a look at something very interesting that really creates a lot of questions for us. The woman that we've been following this entire time before she died is now here in the ruins of Raccoon City after it was destroyed by the US government, and she's a zombie. But not just any zombie, based on the characteristics of her zombie form and the fact that she's carrying a picture and looking at a grave, the grave of her daughter, this clearly gives off Elvis vibes. Yeah, the same virus that zombies in Rhodes Hill and Renwood Hotel are infected with almost 3 decades later. Yeah, she appears to have similarities to that virus, and that combined with her existence alone after Raccoon City was destroyed creates a ton of questions. Did zombies survive the bombing of the city? And if so, what other monsters survived? How did they survive? Why did this woman have similarities to the Elvis virus despite the virus that caused the outbreak in Raccoon City being the T virus? And if this mere zombie survived the destruction of Raccoon City, could Nemesis and other bigger BOWs still be around? Also, what is the timeline of this scene where she's shot and killed by someone? Personally, I assume it's not long after the destruction of Raccoon City, but I will say that the ruins do kind of look similar to the ones that we see in Requiem's trailers, which again is like, what, 28 years into the future? Despite all of these questions that this single zombie sparks, there's even more creative when we hear a few voices after she is gunned down. The first is a male voice that says the following quote.
That's the last of them. Facility secure.
Notice how he specifically mentions the facility and not Raccoon City, meaning he was apparently clearing out a lab or something. Could this mean they were going through the facility under the hospital to collect samples of, I don't know, Nemesis maybe? Or that they were trying to access what remained of Ness after it was destroyed in Resident Evil 2 Remake? We know that the Outbreak games reveal that a new facility was built in the crater of Raccoon City, but them specifically mentioning clearing out a facility of infected is kind of interesting. Also, part of me gets Hunk vibes from the voice of this guy, or at the very least, it sounds like the typical voices we hear from the USS operatives because of their gas masks.
That's the last of them. Facility secure.
Point K-12. Need info on my extraction.
Guess there's no keeping down the Grim Reaper, huh?
My extraction point.
I've switched to the Reaper. I'm headed toward the front gate of RPD. Pick you up there.
Got it.
Probably a stretch, but one thing that's not a stretch is the voice of this next character. Play the clip.
Copy that. Raccoon City is ours.
Now look, I know I'm someone that's been set on the idea that Ada will definitely be in Requiem, despite Capcom refusing to show us anything on her at all before the release of the game. So maybe I'm just coping here, but no matter how many times I replay this line over and over and over again, all I hear is the voice actress of Ada Wong in Resident Evil 4 Remake, Lily Gao.
Copy that. Raccoon City is ours.
The deal was, we get you out of here when you deliver the amber. No amber, no protection, Luis.
I know I'm not crazy here, it literally sounds like her, and I know you guys all think the same. Yeah, I think this might be the spoiler that Descalon was referring to, because if this is Lily Gal, then it confirms Ada Wong is probably in the game. But okay, going back to what she says at the end of the video, she says Raccoon City is ours. This is really interesting for a few reasons. First off, her saying Raccoon City is ours implies that this isn't Umbrella taking back Raccoon City and building a facility in the wreckage of the city like the Outbreak games tease. Instead, this would imply that that a different organization took the city over, considering the fact that Ada has never worked for Umbrella. If this sequence occurs immediately after the destruction of Raccoon City, then this would mean she is still working for Wesker at the time, who works for an unnamed rival company to Umbrella. Or maybe the scene doesn't take place right after the destruction of Raccoon City. Maybe the whole Raccoon City is ours and the facility being cleared quotes are actually in the present day, and they are in reference to a company taking over whatever facility is located in Raccoon City during the events of Requiem. This would explain why it's Lily Gal's voice we hear instead of the voice actors from Resident Evil 2 Remake, right? The final thing I want to talk about is this line here that we see at the end of the trailer. Evil has always had a name. Clearly, this very vague yet chilling quote at the end of the trailer has sparked a lot of speculation from the community. It's obviously teasing something sinister in Resident Evil Requiem, and there's really all sorts of theories out there. Some say that this quote is referencing Umbrella, since they are the company that's essentially responsible for just about everything that's occurred in the franchise thus far. We know Umbrella will play a key part in Requiem's plot, as teased in the trailers thus far, but considering the fact that they were disbanded years ago and Blue Umbrella has resurrected in their place, could this mean that Blue Umbrella will be the villains of Requiem? For those that don't know, Blue Umbrella is a company that was established after the fall of Umbrella. They were created as a way to redeem Umbrella's dark past by creating resources for the BSAA and other biohazard countermeasure organizations to fight the growing threat of BOWs all around the world. Considering that Blue Umbrella uses research, assets, and resources that once belonged to Umbrella, it wouldn't shock me if they turn out to be as evil as their predecessor. However, my theory actually goes to a single individual, a single villain that has been involved in just about every single major event in the series so far in some way, shape, or form. Whether he created villains, learned from villains, or provided the loaded revolver for the villains to use, he's always had a small part in every single storyline of Resident Evil. And if you guys know me, you already know where I'm going with this. Yes, I think this is referencing Oswald E. Spencer. Now, I'm not going to bother you guys by explaining how he could have survived Wesker's attack in Resident Evil 5, as I've done this like a million times by now, but just know if there was any villain that a quote like this could be referencing towards in the entire Resident Evil series, there's really only two names that come to mind: Albert Wesker and Oswald E. Spencer. And Spencer, at least for me, makes a lot more sense to be the villain of Resident Evil Requiem, just saying. Regardless, there's a lot of questions created from this short live action trailer, and honestly, somehow this live action trailer has me even more hyped for Resident Evil Requiem, but also the live action film that Zack Krieger is directing. I have a lot of hope for the future of the franchise, and I can't wait to see what the 30th anniversary has in store for us this year. But hit up the comments and let me know what you guys thought about the live action trailer. Did you like it better than most of the movies? Did you notice anything that I missed in my breakdown? And are you more or less excited for both Requiem and the live action Resident Evil movie releasing later this year? Let me know all of your thoughts down below. Thanks for watching, everybody, and I'll catch you guys on the next episode of Nerd Space Games. Take care.